So if you have long-standing problems or chronic problems of some type, you would want to do this every day, and eventually you'll notice that you don't have to do it so much. In fact, you'll find other things to do it on because that just is really not a problem anymore. And you can do it on anything from bad kidneys, to acupoints, meridians, uh, you know, uh, any kind of organ deficiency or excess, anything that you can think of. That's a problem. All you have to do is give the problem a shape, and you do that by imagining what the problem is. If for example, maybe you've been diagnosed by your doctor or something with fibromyalgia, okay, well, or you think you might have fibromyalgia or something similar to that. Just imagine the fibromyalgia. See it in your mind, okay? What does it look like to you? Then you've got it, okay? Once you have done that, you've got it. You've locked on to the target. And so then you do your Shen balancing technique to remove it, okay? So I would line up like so, and I would see the disease, whatever it is, and I would do my technique the same way I've done it, and I would lock it in and squeeze and release, and I would give it a few minutes, and then I would go back and do it again. Obviously, it doesn't take a great deal of time to do this technique. It's very powerful for the amount of time that it takes to do it, because as soon as I've done the technique, it discharges that energy into my system, and then it continues to work for, I've seen it work on somebody for up to 30 minutes in one dosage of it, so to speak, just doing it one time. So does this work with emotional stuff? What if I have emotional grievances from the past? We've seen it, work on physical stuff. Maybe you've tried it by now, working on physical stuff, and you see it definitely works. Does it work on emotional stress, tension, and perhaps emotional trauma? Maybe you had some type of bad experiences as a child, and although they may seem very severe, they're real, and I'm sure that symptomatically, they are very severe. The problem is still an energy base, and so if you can change the energy base, you can change the whole thing. And that may sound incredible to you, and how come nobody's ever come to you with this before? Well, they're coming to you with it now, and so it's all up to you as to what you're going to do with it. Do you want to be free of it, or do you not? There are lots of techniques out there that work really good in removing emotional traumas from the past that seem to be nobody else can do anything with them. However, they're just not mainstream for whatever reason. They're growing in popularity. It was my honor about this time last year to fly out to California and speak at the 8th International Energy Psychology Conference. And so in doing that, I could get a chance to see where everybody's at. With California, you would think that they're really ahead of the game with all this energy stuff. They weren't. In fact, the techniques that we demonstrated were far beyond anything that anybody else was lecturing on as far as actual applicable healing methods. Don't get me wrong, there were some great people there, but the bottom line was, techniques from thousands of years old like we use are still top of the line apparently. So, but there are a lot of good systems out there, and there's nothing wrong with experimenting with them. There's some bad systems out there too, but you should just kind of know when you see this turns me off. I really don't gravitate toward that, and so that's fine. Don't do that. Okay, for everything out there that you don't gravitate towards, there's plenty of other things out there that you will gravitate towards, and you will learn. And maybe later, that'll be something that you can incorporate. Maybe it just wasn't your time yet, or whatever the case may be. But if we're going to do emotions, okay, we simply imagine the experience, okay? And so all we're doing, again, is nothing new here. We're just giving shape to the energy. I'm imagining whatever it was that occurred, no matter how bad it was. I just think about it. If it's too hard to think about it, there's a little trick that you can do, or if you have a ton of stuff. I mean, I know some people who have just a ton of stuff, and so I tell them, when they set up their or schedule their appointment, I tell them, write a list out of everything that bothers you, everything that you can possibly think of. Write it out on a list, and I don't care how long the list is, and just put it in an envelope, okay? And I don't have to look at it. Nobody's going to see it, okay? And you can shred it when we're done. But because they write on the paper, they're psychically imprinting on the paper, whether they realize it or not. And when they put it in the envelope, I can have them do the technique, or I can do another technique to them, and it clears everything on the list out of their energy system. And you can do the same thing. If you have a lot of stuff and you just have a whole laundry list of problems, which most people do, take the time to write it all down. Okay? Then, after you've taken the time to write it all down, imagine all the things on the paper. And I don't have to think about each one specifically in my head. I can just say all the things on the paper and all the way they make me feel. And I can do my technique the same way. And in a couple of minutes, I'll notice all that stuff doesn't really mean anything anymore. I'll have almost no reference for it. And then you can just wad it up and throw it away. Some people burn it. If you're really fixed and you're really cleared of all the emotions, you won't have to burn it, because it just won't mean anything to you. You just won't care anymore. And it's not a matter of, I don't care. No, it's, you know what? I just really feel like I'm over that, and it doesn't really have any power on me anymore. And throw it away. And that's the way you'll feel. You don't have to force yourself into trying to feel that way. And if you don't feel that way after doing it once, do it again. Okay? If you don't feel that way the second time, which you'll feel better each time you do it. But some things are really deep-seated, and some people really hold on to stuff. And I mean, emotions can make you horrifically sick. I mean, in other videos, I'll explain the martial science philosophy on how disease occurs. And just fantastic stuff. And you can see how the physical affects the emotional, affects the spiritual, or the emotional affects the physical, affects the spiritual, or the spiritual affects the, so forth and so on. And so, I'll write it all out all on a chart for you so you can see it. But it's fantastic stuff and gives you a great insight into how emotions can trigger disease, physical trauma can trigger disease, and spiritual stuff can also trigger disease, and how each one of them are connected, and how when one is triggered, it will go to the one of the other two. Doesn't necessarily have to go in a specific direction, but it will go one way or the other, and it continues in that same cycling pattern in a three-dimensional kind of way, spiraling up the chart. But anyway, that's another videotape. With doing it for emotion, it's just as easy as it was for doing physical things. Okay, so let's say we're just not feeling up to snuff today. Okay, like for instance, I don't feel happy, but I don't feel sad. I just kind of feel blah. Maybe you've got a case of the Mondays. I always hate that. So I just don't come to work on Mondays. No, I'm just kidding. I pretty much work 7 days a week. So if we have just a blah feeling, well, then we can just address it as being a blah feeling. I feel kind of blah today. And then I just do my technique, and everything starts to break up, and I start to feel a lot better. And now, let's go back and put some enhancements on the emotional stuff. Let's say you cleaned out all of the emotional trauma, okay, but yet, and you don't have any connection to that, but now you need some kind of direction. You need some kind of upliftment, okay? Imagine yourself, okay, and usually I recommend that you do this one 3 times. Anytime that you do a positive install, I recommend you do a positive installation, and then wait a few minutes, and then do another one, and then wait a few minutes and do another one, because then you're really cooking.